Hello lovelies, it's Laura in Vietnam, and today is a spotlight on who I want to work with for my 12-week Step into Soulful Leadership School Leaders Program. Now, I'm already going to narrow it down. I don't want to work with all leaders. I want to work with middle leaders. So middle leaders, it could be a primary school, or it could be a secondary school, a middle school, and all through school. For me, in fact, the age of the children and the young people that you teach is really actually quite irrelevant. What I would like to work with, and the people who my program is designed to truly, transform their personal lives and their academic and their career lives, is the middle leaders. So I'm talking about people who have been identified by their school as amazing teachers. People who have been identified by their school as brilliant thinkers. So the people who can look at a classroom full of children or young people as they go through the process of learning, and who can sit back and analyze what's going on. The people who see, I talk a lot about children are becoming data, and it's a real concern. Truly, it's a real concern that I think everybody who works in a school has, from the head teacher all the way through to the newly qualified teacher, even all the way through to the bus drivers. We are all worried about how far accountability for, teachers need to get results. We know that we need to do this, but how far does that flip when we focus too much on the data? Is your child in the red or the amber or the green tracker, or whatever system the school has? So the people that I want to work with, they are worrying about this. They're always thinking about this. They're thinking about the best thing for their children. They are not in teaching. Who's in teaching for the money? That is kind of laughable, isn't it? But they're in this job because they love it. They're not the people who are in this job because it's safe, because it's sensible, because it seemed like a good idea when they finish university. They're in it because they love being educators, and they want the best for the children and the young people in their care. Now, they've been identified by their senior leaders, who I will talk about in a second as well. They have been identified as insightful, intelligent, brilliant educators, up on their pedagogy, constant learners, and they have been elevated from the class teacher role, the solid as a rock class teacher role. They are now being elevated into middle management, and that means head of subject, head of house, head of department, even head of something pastoral. These are people who are now going from in their box as, I'm a class teacher, perhaps, hopefully they have a teaching assistant. Certainly they will have people who they manage within their school, within their, their bubble of their classroom. They are responsible for a number of young people, whether they're in primary, so they have, a set class, or whether they're in secondary, or in the high school, where they have a number of children and young people, various ages, that come in and out. And they're good at managing them because they happen to be good at managing them. They haven't had any training per se. They just are lucky, thoughtful, intelligent. They haven't had formal training. And so often, this is why I came to this work, because so often our middle leaders, our class teachers, are elevated into middle leadership because somebody higher up, the SLT, the senior leaders, are looking at them and saying, oh, you've got huge potential here. And then they're just plonked in middle leadership, and then they, training wheels are off you go. And it's terrifying. And, these people are intelligent, brilliant, heart-led human beings doing it for the right reasons. And by and large, they do a fairly good job. Sometimes they don't. And it is these stories that have led me to come up with, to create, to design a program which meets the needs of middle leaders. Because the inspirational senior leaders that I work with, who commission me to come and work with their middle leaders, they get it. They've been through training, because once you pass through the threshold of middle leadership into senior leadership, that is when you get lots of training. So you get lots of initial teacher training, and then you get your, you're going for the deputy head position, you're going for your MPQH. These are rigorous, important, sorely needed and fabulous training courses. What about your middle leaders? What about the middle of your school? Do you have like the saggy floppy middle? Do you have rock solid early years? Do you have highly qualified class teachers and inspirational SLT who get how you treat people in a school? And then your middle leaders are just the people in the hinterland? Do you invest in your year 3-4 if you're a primary teacher? Do you invest in Key Stage 3 if you are in a secondary school? Because that is where the strength of your school comes from. And so many schools are missing out on it. So many schools. So the people that I want to work with are the ones who are in middle leadership, and they want to do the best they can do, but they are exhausted because they are trying to be the best leaders they can be. And they don't know how, because nobody showed them how. They're trying to be a good person. They're trying to listen to, say they're the head of history, and one of their history teachers is coming to them with a problem, like a problem at home, and they're trying to work out what to do. At the same time, they're trying to support the children, the young people in their class. They are trying to have a work-life balance. They are trying to hold on to their vision of why they came into teaching in the first place, and why one day they would like to be the head teacher or the deputy head or the Senko or some other form of leader. And they are swamped. Pure and simple, because they haven't been put on some course that ushers them into soulful leadership. What is soulful leadership? Soulful leadership is leadership which is enacted by somebody who has been invested in by their school. So I'm talking here about the senior leaders who are looking at their middle leaders who they just elevated from their rock solid class teacher position into middle leadership. And they've gone, okay, this is a big leap. This is a leap that most schools are not right now investing in properly, because they don't understand what big a leap it is. So we are going to invest in a 12-week program where you spend the first 3 weeks looking at yourself. This is well-being. We have invested in your well-being. A soulful leader, I say this all the time, whole people achieve more. Soulful leaders can only be inspirational, trauma-informed, can only understand the amount of stuff, of baggage that the children bring to the classroom. They can only understand that, the woman who's just come back off maternity leave, she may have stuff going on in her life as she slots back into the school, which she is desperately happy to be in. And soulful leaders are able to access their empathy for that person, because they have themselves been through a healing process, because they have been through well-being, because they are whole, psychologically whole. A soulful leader is able to look at somebody, another teacher in their department or in their house, and to see, you've been behaving a bit differently lately. Perhaps I should, maybe take a bit of time to support you. Or somebody who has a sick parent at home, a child who has suffered a bereavement. These people, these members of staff who are managed by middle leaders, these students who are managed by middle leaders who are more responsible for their attainment and their progress and their livelihood, their personal development, they deserve leaders who know how to deal with other human beings. They deserve leaders who can access their empathy. They deserve leaders who are whole. And your leaders, who I want to work with, I want to take people who are good, who are really good at what they do and have lots of promise, and to make them great by freeing them to follow their vision and to understand people around them. That's who I want to work with.